Welcome to part 3 of my ongoing series of 100 questions to ask an atheist, ostensibly about evolution, but most of them, at least so far, haven't been about evolution at all. But let's be honest, the vast majority haven't really been about anything worthwhile, and I fear we're in for more of that today as we finish out his section on morality. So without further ado, here we go again with another 10 questions this apologist thinks will blow atheist minds. Question 21. Do you think everyone knows it's wrong to steal, lie, and cheat? Well, clearly not, otherwise we wouldn't have jails full of people who've stolen and cheated, and we wouldn't have tons of liars. The fact is, society decides what will be right and what will be wrong within that particular society and crafts laws to reflect that decision. No successful society declares something wrong just because it's wrong. These decisions are subjective. Virtually all societies declare things wrong and illegal because they harm people. It's based on enlightened self-interest. You don't want someone to steal from you, therefore you don't want anyone stealing from anyone. You don't want someone to murder you, therefore you don't want anyone murdering anyone. This is how morality works in virtually all societies. It's too bad these Christians don't get that. Number 22. How is that possible, and doesn't that sound like an absolute standard of right and wrong that applies to all people? If everyone knows it's wrong, why does everyone do it? The Bible calls it sin. Is it universal and true of all of us? Now you notice he just assumed an answer for the last question, and that's not the answer I gave. There are no absolute standards of right and wrong. In fact, you probably can't find a single moral precept that has been true in all societies across the planet and throughout time. There are always societies where it's okay to kill some people, or enslave some people, or steal from some people for some reason or another. There's no such thing as sin. It's all made-up nonsense designed to force people to accept your own personal moral views without having to have any rational argument that would otherwise convince people to do so. 23. Do you see you need... What the fuck? Dude, learn to fucking type. I'll try to make sense of this. Do you see your need of God's forgiveness for the things you've done in secret? Nope. Beyond the fact that there's no reason to think that any gods exist at all, I see no need for some magical man in the sky's approval of my actions. If he's going to punish people for making their own choices, he's a dick and unworthy of worship or respect. The God of the Bible is little more than a cruel, vindictive slave master who gets off beating his slaves because they don't do what he wants. This isn't something that Christians ought to be proud of. Why the fuck are you? 24. Do you know that the Bible says that God is willing to forgive you because Jesus took the punishment you deserved so God could legally forgive you without compromising his justice? Alright, do I care what the Bible says? Hell no. I'm no more concerned with that ridiculous Bronze Age nonsense in the Bible than I care what it says in the Quran or the Vedas or the Enuma Elish. No one has proven that any of these books are factually true or that the claims made within them are worth paying the slightest bit of attention to. And if God can't compromise his justice, he's not all that all-powerful, is he? So why worship this pathetic excuse for a deity? 25. If there is no God, then there is no moral law. If there is no God, then life is meaningless and the world is an inexplicable riddle. But if you read the Bible and believe God, the history of the human race is satisfactorily explained. Does that make sense? No, that's ridiculous. Even if there is no God, we can make up our own moral laws, and we demonstrably do so. This whole line of reasoning comes from people who have no imagination and no ability to think for themselves. You can have any meaning to your life that you want. You decide that for yourself. You don't wait for some imaginary man in the sky to do it for you. If you do that, you're an idiot. 26. Morality is absolutely true because God wrote the 10 Commandments on tablets of stone and on the heart of every man. How do you account for the fact that every man knows in his heart that it's wrong to murder, it's wrong to steal, and it's wrong to lie? Prove it. Prove any of it. Just making statements based on nothing but blind faith is not going to impress anybody. It's just as ridiculous as asking how you account for the fact that the moon is made of green cheese. Well, It's not! It isn't a fact. It's a complete and total fabrication without an ounce of evidence to back it up. But these people don't have the slightest interest in reality because it gets in the way of their emotionally comforting fantasy. Fuck you idiots! 27. Every man knows it's wrong to have another man's wife. That is universal, unchanging, indisputable, timeless, absolute moral truth. You know it's true. I know you know it's true, and God knows you know it's true. Isn't that true? No. This is just an argument from assertion. You know that I'm right, so I'm right, whether you want to admit that I'm right or not. These are not rational questions. These are just stupid. How can you be so stupid? 28. Why do all men die? Because we do. Oh, and all women die too, of course. Everything that's alive dies. It's part of the circle of life. Now, I could go into the biological reasons for it, but I don't think this guy would understand a bit of it, nor care, so I'm not going to bother. And what does this have to do with evolution again? Moving on to 29. Try to imagine nothing exists. No Earth, Sun, Moon, stars, or galaxy. There are no elements such as carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, or oxygen. No such things as time, space, or matter. No universe, no God. There is nothing. If there was ever a time when nothing but nothing existed, then what would exist now? All right, now we're moving on to another section. Thank goodness, because that morality section sucked. And this one's called Science. Although I suspect this idiot's knowledge of science is no better than his knowledge of morality. This question doesn't even make any sense. Try to imagine something, which, sure, I can imagine it, and then assume that it actually happened, and ask what would exist today if this imaginary state were real. Yeah. Next. And finally, we come to number 30. If the material universe is all that there is and all that there will ever be, as Carl Sagan claimed, then why is the material universe governed by immaterial laws? Oh, look, more gotcha questions. How unoriginal. Okay, I did go out and do a cursory look for quotes by Carl Sagan that sort of said that, and I couldn't really come up with anything. If anyone finds that, please send it my way in the comments. I did, however, find an interesting one from Cosmos, where he said, and I quote, "Every aspect of nature reveals a deep mystery and touches our sense of wonder and awe. Those afraid of the universe as it really is, those who pretend to non-existent knowledge and envision a cosmos centered on human beings, will prefer the fleeting comforts of superstition. They avoid rather than confront the world. But those with the courage to explore the weave and structure of the cosmos, even where it differs profoundly from their wishes and prejudices, will penetrate its deepest mysteries." That sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, as suspected, this idiot doesn't really understand science or much of anything else. The physical laws are not rules that matter and energy have to obey. They're descriptions of how matter and energy interact. There isn't this book of scientific laws that some cosmic cop carries around, handing out tickets to atoms and quarks that decide not to follow them. The whole idea is just stupid, but hey, it's a clueless Christian. What the hell do you expect? These questions are quickly becoming painful. I mean, it's clear this apologist has no basic education in anything but sticking his nose in the Bible. He has no clue about science, absolutely no knowledge of philosophy, but he's got a bloody PhD in, it seems to me. This describes an awful lot of theists who haven't got any idea what they're talking about, but they've got no problem pontificating on whatever topic comes to mind based on their irrational and utterly absurd religious beliefs. Oh well, I think I'm going to have to go lay down. I've got a headache coming on, and there's still like 70 questions to go in this apologetic clusterfuck. I'll see you all next time. This is going to hurt.